Thank you for learning Siebel with the Siebel Hub. We have a unique, comprehensive and always up-to-date collection of Siebel CRM 2021 training classes. We can deliver live online and on-site training in the highest quality with the most experienced instructors. And we also offer a unique modular Siebel CRM 20 and 21 training. Follow the links in the description or on this slide to learn more and learn Siebel with the Siebel Hub. Hello and welcome to this presentation of the Siebel CRM Update 21.2 highlights. 21.2 has been published a few days ago in February 2021. And the biggest highlight is, of course, the Modular Deployment Engine, or MDE, is now generally available. It was available since 20.5 for members of the Early Adopter Program. The MDE is a big chapter, and we are going to just cover it really quickly, and stay tuned for more videos to become available on the Siebel Hub. The MDE comes with a new installation guide in Bookshelf, and this installation guide contains samples and references to samples for silent configuration. So silent installation is of course supported. Silent configuration is a new thing. And then there are a few tiny highlights which we will briefly cover. So for example, the TLS Listener Port, the port that always causes confusion is the port that the gateway service, the registry service listening on, is now specified during the Bootstrap for new installations. Of course, it's no longer specified during the new installation of Siebel Enterprise components. Then we have news that the EI Object Manager and JMS Receiver components on the Siebel server no longer require a restart after the runtime repository changes in development environments through a delivery or in runtime environments through a migration. So this information is from the Bookshelf, which is new chapters. The MDE lays down a new Apache Tomcat version, 9041, and we already mentioned the new installation guide in Bookshelf. So let's have a closer look at the Modular Deployment Engine, or MDE. So the biggest thing to know about it that this replaces the base and update installer combination that you had to use until and including 21.1. So if you wanted to install 21.1, you had to run the 17.0 base installer and then run the 21.1 update installer on top. That is true for SES, AI, tools, and the client. So now we got a single installer, which encompasses all the Siebel components that you can install. That includes the Siebel Enterprise server, which is the gateway and Siebel server, database server utilities, the application interface, Siebel tools, and the Siebel web client or developer web client. So the 17.0 installation is no longer necessary. You don't need to download that or install it. So MDE supports all the installation paths, so you can run a new installation of 21.2 with a single run. You can run migration installations, which are supported even further back than IP15. And you can run, of course, updates on top of anything between 17 and 21.1. The installer also includes the post-install database setup utility, which has been introduced in 20.3, and it is included with the SES update as well. The interesting part here is that how to get the MDE installer. You'd actually download a set of zip files. In 21.2, these are 9 different zip files containing different paths, optional or required. And you simply extract those zip files to a folder and you're good to go. So there's no Siebel Network Image Creator or SNCC required. So just download the zip files, choose the right zip files because you probably don't need all of them, and then extract them to your install base folder, where you can find the usual structure of a install folder and a setup.bat file, which you can run on Windows. And of course, there's an installer for Linux too. Once you have run the MDE, you will be surprised by a lot of changes that it introduces, especially when it comes to the folder structure of the Siebel software. So on the screenshot, you can see two prominent folders on top: application container external and application container internal, which are now included with the SES components. So you no longer select the AI, you just select SES components, and the folder structure will always be the same, no matter how you want to use it. So what is formerly known as the AI tomcat is now application container external, so the external facing tomcat, so to speak, and what was formerly known as the SES tomcat is now the application container underscore internal folder. So to speak, the internal facing tomcat. You can see from the screenshot that the gateway server folder, the Siebel server folder, the database server utilities folder, application interface folder, even enterprise cache, and a bit surprising, constraint engine, which has been sunsetted even before it was GA, but the folder's still there. Ignore it. So this folder structure is always the same, no matter what you install. On the server side, tools and client is a bit different. And if you look into these folders further, you find that a lot of directories which had repetitive or redundant content, like bin folders or lib folders, are now pointing to one and the same folder by using symbolic links or Windows shortcuts. So it's very fast, actually. It's only contains the absolute minimum of files that you need to run, and you can run any Siebel portion from this folder structure. During an update, if you have separate folders, of course, for Siebel SES, for Siebel AI, all these folders will be retained but modified. So it will not combine everything in a single folder. That is only the case if you do a new installation. So here we have a bit more detail on the application container folder. So application container is no longer the folder name. These folders are renamed, as we have seen, to underscore external, underscore internal for AI and SES respectively. With that comes a renaming of the Tomcat services. The MDE, like the previous setup update installers, actually delete the Tomcat service on Windows and then re-establish it. But now the service has a new name. And so if you have references to these service names in, let's say, custom startup scripts, you might have some more items on your checklist to verify those startup scripts and make sure that the correct Tomcats are still referenced. And you also need to validate the content that was within the former application container folder, let's say in AI. The entire AI, or during an update, the entire old previous folder is renamed. So it's a cold backup of sorts. It's just a rename, and the new folder is laid down, and custom aspects are copied over. So, for example, covering the OpenUI scripts and the OpenUI CSS files. But some files, some customizations might have been done in different places, which the mechanism does not find. So you need to verify that your customizations have arrived in the new folder structure. And keep in mind that because of the renaming of the folder, the reference to the Siebel public folder, which was formerly application container /web apps /Siebel, is now application container underscore external slash Siebel web root. So there's a new folder, which is now the new Siebel web root public folder if you use the folder for running the AI. So this is where all your custom files, etc., have to go. So MDE is a big change, and we have collected a few tips for preparing yourself for 21.2 update. Again, stay tuned for more content on the Siebel Hub, and follow the links in the description of this video to get the latest information on the MDE. So before you start running the update installer, it's actually a good idea to go to the 21.2 or later bookshelf and check out the new installation guide. So there is a note in this installation guide that it supersedes the old installation guides that were separate for Windows and Unix, and now there's only one, and it has entirely new information. So make sure you understand that installation guide and understand that it's a new one. Also take a look, mandatory of course, at the release notes that come with 21.2. Especially look into the known issues section and search for 21.2. You will find a few issues that are explained there. Now, if you are really hot for running the update, make sure to stop all the services, because you know the folder will be renamed. So that fails if, for example, you have some services still running, or for example, the debug server, which was introduced in 20.11. So this was one that I found out the hard way. So stop all these services, and then there was also an issue that we encountered during our tests with the post-install database setup, where a LOV was missing in the wf_group_cd LOV type. The value missing was usage pattern. So you might want to verify maybe all the group names for your workflow processes, because there's a process included in the R environment, workflow migration, which actually has somehow to do with selecting or picking a group name, and if the value is not there in the LOV, you're in trouble. So check your LOVs and maybe add that before you run the post-install database update. The update of the developer web client is something that developers would need to do, of course, and that requires the database SE2, so it enforces laying down the database, the local SE2 files, even if they're not needed for the developer web client. So in a very similar pattern to the old 17.0 tools installation, there is an Oracle database installation happening. This is the 8 of 9 zip file. So you need to unzip that file if you want to run the developer web client update to 21.2. And there is a database client, a 19C database client that comes with the installers. And this is not required actually on SES. It's only required for the mobile web client. But it is, if you include it, it will lay down a database client and change the path of Windows systems. So you need to be aware of that. And the best results we have gotten during our tests by running the post-install database update manually. So choose the skip option during the first SES update, and then you make sure you have all the prerequisites and you can connect to your database correctly through the ODBC data source, and then run post-install database update manually, maybe. Once the update is done, that is even without the post-install database update, we have new Tomcat services. As usual, we need to reconfigure them. Let's say the memory options, etc., need to be adjusted. And then, of course, as mentioned, we have new service names. So start and stop scripts or any other references to these service names need to be updated. We notice the Siebel servers are started automatically, even if they're set to manual. So the SES update kind of looks for the Siebel server and kicks it off, even if the post-install database update has not run. So maybe just verify that and maybe stop it and restart it later. And on Windows, we mentioned that if you do include the database client, the 19C database client that comes with the MDE, then it is laid down with the folder structure, and a path, the path environment variable is updated to include that. And actually there is a note in the release notes to remove these references. Otherwise you get in trouble with your ODBC DSN and your 32-bit database client. As we get a completely new folder structure, verify that any custom content, any customizations to, let's say, files like server XML are fully copied over or fully incorporated into the new folder structure. The renamed folders, the pre-MDE folders, you can easily identify, and maybe for the sake of saving disk space, etc., you can copy them away, move them to some other location, or archive them. So MDE is not just your regular update, it's a big change in how we install Siebel in 21.2 and in future releases. So make sure you take your time, make a sandbox and make experiments and understand how to get the best results. Now we are looking into the new installation guide. There is a chapter in the installation guide which talks about configuring Siebel CRM using silent mode. So configuration refers to the job after the installation. If you consider new Siebel CRM installation, you're laying down a new enterprise in 21.2. We used to, well, after the AI and SES are installed, you can log into the SMC the first time and then kick off the Bootstrap process. We all know that process. And the first time in actually the Siebel history of since 17.0, since the new architecture, is that semi-officially the REST API of the SMC, or actually the cloud gateway, is published at least partially in Siebel Bookshelf. So that's kind of a step forward to making the REST API really public, with the documentation how to run the Bootstrap process and other steps of the enterprise configuration in silent mode using curl or other utilities. Along with this instructions goes a sample response folder in the config folder, and that includes JSON files which have example payloads for these REST calls, and also example response files for the config bat utility. So if you're interested in running your Siebel installation completely unattended, you can run the unattended installation, and then you can run the unattended configuration. It is fully documented. This is a screenshot from a Bootstrap in a new 21.2 installation. So even if you do it silent mode, as we discussed just in the previous slide, or you do it in manual mode in the SMC UI, the first step of the Bootstrap now has a new parameter, the TLS Listener Port, the most confused port in the universe, which is the port that the gateway registry service, gateway name server, uses to listen for connections. And in pre-21.2, this port was specified during the SES installation in the installer. So now this has been moved to the Bootstrap process. Okay, so this was a quick walkthrough of the most important highlights of the Siebel CRM 21.2 update, which is surely to go down in history as it introduces the new modular deployment engine, MDE. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.